Depressed relative seeing a strange creature. This is my first post, and I'm so glad that I found this site. I have a relative who has been severely depressed of late, and she's been seeking medical help and is now on medication. Anyways, she's now opening up to me as well, and it turns out she has been seeing a creature regularly. She describes it as being a black cat or a rat or a bat. It sits and stares at her, and if she stands up or moves, it darts under a table or a chair. If she is feeling really depressed or scared, then the creature gets closer. A couple of times when she felt suicidal, the creature is a couple of inches from her face. She sees it whether alone or with other people. Sometimes it is even sitting on someone else's lap. Her shrink has told her it's a manifestation of her anxieties and depression, but it sounds weird to me, and perhaps something supernatural? She hasn't said how big it is or whether she sees it in the day or at night. She did say that, to begin with, it would go away if she told it to, but then seemed to get stronger than her and would stick around. It never made a noise, and it never touched her. Has anyone else ever heard of anything like this before, or have any suggestions? She is currently on some medication that makes it go away, so perhaps it is anxiety related, but she still sees it on occasion, once every couple of months. Thanks. Corner Creeper. From youngest childhood, as long as I can remember, I had this thing that lived in my room. I was the only one who could see him. It was distinctly male. I just knew from the feeling he gave me. But others would feel his energy and it creeped them out, or in a few cases, frightened them so badly they couldn't be in the room when he was. He normally occupied a corner of whatever room he was in, up near the ceiling. He was rough-looking, scaly, dirty, sparsely haired with an unnaturally wide face, and his knees worked backwards, holding him in the corner. His features were never super clear, so I can't really describe his face much more than the shape of it. While he could be felt as scary, creepy, or downright hateful by others, I always felt comforted by his presence, and when he was not there, it seemed off to me. He would be there for weeks at a time, then be gone for a few days, and then return looking almost refreshed, if that makes any sense. I felt protected by him, but others hated his presence to the point where my mom tried techniques like trapping him in a dark mirror, smudging, and banishing. I don't understand those things for the record, as I've never dabbled in any of it. I just remember her talking about it, what she was doing when she did it. None of it ever worked, and he always returned. We lived in motels, apartments, shelters, and no matter where I was, he always found me. He watched me. Never said anything, never came down from his corner, never tried to communicate, save for once, when my brother came into my room in an apartment suddenly, and I saw his head swing quickly from me to my brother. He saw my brother, but my brother did not see him. He stared at him until after I answered my brother, and he left the room, before resuming watching me. I say stared because it wasn't the same kind of watching that he did with me. It was almost angry. I could tell if he was feeling something, although I'm not sure why. And although I've tried many times to talk to him, he never showed he could even hear me. He stopped showing up when I was around 20, and I haven't seen him since. I just wonder if anyone else ever saw something like him or knew what he might have been. He was not human, but humanoid, and his joints worked the wrong ways. He had long arms and legs, and a rather short torso. So standing up, I can imagine he would have looked rather odd, with a small torso, long limbs, and wide face. Notes: I have always been more sensitive to ghosts and seeing things others miss, perceptive to things outside this world. I have experienced other paranormal stuff, but those can be explained by dead in the area, or the fact that I was in a graveyard at the time, and nothing else non-humanoid. I call him Creeper because of how he made others feel. I never felt anything but safety and comfort from him. Dover Demon. I just wanted to post another incident that happened to me when I was younger. I don't know how many people are from the area I grew up in, the town of Westwood, Mass., which is right next to the town of Dover, Mass. In fact, we lived less than a mile from the Dover dump. I don't know how many people might have heard or remember stories that were circulating back in the 70s about a creature that was named the Dover Demon. This creature supposedly looked something like a large dog or coyote, if I remember correctly, and two things that distinguished it were its huge red eyes and its ability to stand on its hind legs like a bear. While coming home one night, both myself and my brother saw something on the road that was very disturbing to us. We had been over to see my mother's aunt, and they had been telling us stories about the wee people over in Ireland, which might have gotten our imagination stirred up. We were riding in the back of our parents' station wagon when we both thought we saw something come out of the woods and into the street. Whatever it was seemed to have large red eyes and was running like a dog or coyote might run. But whatever it was seemed abnormally fast, almost keeping up with the car. We did seem to finally outrun whatever it was, but when we got home, the two of us ran into the house and got the door closed as quick as possible. Like I said, it could have just been our overactive imagination, or it could have been some kind of a wild animal. There was a lot of forest in the area, but I was just wondering if anyone had ever seen anything like the Dover Demon, or remember any other incidences involving it. Thanks. Demon crabs. When I was about 10 years old, my father took me on a fishing trip, something we usually do once per month. I got the buckets ready as he prepared the net to throw it into the trench. After he finished preparing the net, he threw it into the water and slowly dragged it up the bank of the trench. As he was pulling up the net, his expression changed to that of a slight fear. And I knew why. In the net there were 3 crabs. The smallest of these crabs were 12 inches across the shell, with some very large tentacles. The crabs resembled what we Guyanese called buck crabs, except that they were 4 times larger than those that we were accustomed to seeing. They were, in fact, hideous to look at. My father secured them in the net, and we proceeded to his parents' home, which was just a few houses from where we were living at the time. When we arrived, he put the crabs on the ground and called his mother and sister to look at what he brought home. My aunt came out first, took a look at the crabs, began jumping up hysterically, and shouted, "You brought those demon things? Get them out of here!" My grandmother nearly fainted and begged my father to go and release them. Now I tell you why my father showed fear. My aunt behaved hysterically and my grandmother nearly fainted. My father's grandfather, an immigrant from India, usually went to fish in the ocean, in the Atlantic Ocean, as a means of supplementing his food source, as the low wage that was earned from cutting sugarcane was not enough to support his large family. Before my father was born, the grandfather went out on one of these exercises and caught a rather large crab. This crab measured over 16 inches across its back. The smaller species that we know about is now called Shuriga crabs. He put the crab into a quake, a bamboo basket with a tightly closed cover, and proceeded to show his family his great catch. When he reached home, he was extremely tired, which was strange as he usually fetched heavier loads over longer distances. He set the quake down and sat next to it to take a rest. All of a sudden, he was twisted backwards, with his belly up in the air, and his heels reached the back of his head. Naturally, his wife and children were scared and frantic. Then a voice came out of the quake, asking him why he disturbed it, the crab. Well, he couldn't really answer. His wife was now screaming louder and running around like a headless chicken. A neighbor heard the commotion and came over. He asked the crab what it wants, to which it replied that it must be put back at the exact location from where it was taken. My great-grandfather gave the neighbor the direction to where the crab was caught. He then picked up the quake and proceeded to the location. Based on the timing given, it seemed that as soon as the crab reached its hole, it released the hold it had on my great-grandfather. That was the last time anyone in the family brought home any abnormal creature. I'm not sure if my father released the crabs we caught that day. Chances are that we had crab curry sometime later that week. Laughing birds. This experience happened one night when me and my friends went out for some drinks. We went to a local club downtown, and I remember I told my friends I was going to wait for them in the car. I was feeling a little bad already. It was around 1 in the morning. The club was almost over, so I just got out and started walking to the car. This area in town is known to have very bad vibes, and a lot of bad things happen there, but like anyone, we never believed anything would happen to us. We parked about half a block away from the main entrance of the club. It's kind of darker, but it was the only parking kind of close to the entrance. I got into the car and got on the driver's seat. I was sitting there with the windows up and doors locked. Again, downtown bad area. I was there for a few minutes or so. Then I heard what I thought were two girls laughing. I brushed it off and thought maybe they were just drunk since it was almost 2, and the club closes at 2, so I ignored it. Then I saw my best friend Ronnie walking towards the car. I unlocked the doors and turned back around. Then I heard the laughing again, and before I even got the chance to turn around, my best friend ran into the car with the ugliest look on his face. I looked at him and asked, "Are you okay?" He stayed quiet for a minute, eyes wide open and not knowing what to say. He looked scared. Finally, he said, "You didn't see that?" I was freaking out more with him, to be honest, but I said no, I didn't see anything. Not even a few minutes later, I turned back around and turned on the radio. He tells me to look out the window. I see 2 birds flying not too high above us, laughing. I don't know what kind of birds they were. They didn't look like any birds I've ever seen before. They weren't too far or high above. I got to see them clearly. They were horrible looking and quite big. They were laughing like girls. They sounded human. My friend just told me, "Let's leave." I couldn't pick some of our friends up who were still in the club. He was panicking, so I got out of my parking lot and turned around and picked up our other friends in the main entrance. He stayed quiet the whole ride home. I remember he asked if he can spend the night at one of our houses. His parents weren't home, and he didn't want to stay alone. So we all decided to stay at my friend Anna's house. That night, he couldn't sleep, and I tried asking again what it was that he saw. He told me that he saw me walk out, and he saw some guy follow me. Since he's one of my best friends, he's always been overprotective. So when he was walking towards the car, he said that he also heard what sounded like two girls laughing. He said that when he turned around and he saw nobody, he brushed it off. Probably he thought just two drunk girls and laughing super loud somewhere, so he kept on walking. Then he said he heard a whistle super close to the back of his head. He said that he felt something in the back of him, so he started walking faster. As he was walking, something hit him in the back of his head, and when he turned around, he saw the most ugliest bird hovering over him. He said it had a human's face, more like a girl's face, and then it said, "You're coming with me." That's when he ran towards the car. He didn't want to tell me anything because he knew I was going to panic. These birds in my area are common. A lot of sightings have been seen around here. They are mostly known as witches or messengers for witches. I live in an area where a lot of people still do witchcraft, and a lot of them are not nice people. These human-like birds like to come out at night, but most sightings here are mostly towards guys out late at night.